Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Thrive Live. Our guest today is a little bit different than the guests that we've had previously. We typically talk to HR professionals about our industry, and we made a group decision that we need to really address some items that affect the workforce and look at it from a different approach. So I'm going to bring in Jason and Ray, and we want to really let you know about this incredible guest that we scored today. So let me bring them in for you. Hi, Ray. Hi, Jason.
Hi,
Hey,
Beth.
Hello, Beth.
So welcome from Katy, Texas. Jason, where are you today?
I am in Austin, Texas today.
Ray?
Yep, and I am in Denver, Colorado. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Stacey Jenkins, and I do have his bio here. It's quite extensive, so please bear with me. Stacey Jenkins is with a company called CRUX Consulting. He has more than 2 decades of teaching and instructing, and his areas of expertise include incorporating psychology in addition to hostage negotiation methods to achieve higher levels of leadership, team, and group effectiveness. This concept is proven sound and efficient in regards to producing advanced degrees of success in the areas of administration, performance, and consumer awareness. His approach derives from his experience as an adjunct professor of psychology and group dynamics and expertise as an interrogator, profiler, and hostage negotiator. Stacey displays his passion for mental health advocacy and the desire to make a difference in someone's life through openness about his own experiences. He is, are you ready for this? A homicide detective, gang unit specialist detective, hostage negotiator, crisis intervention team officer, school resource officer. He has 5 years as a special agent with the Department of Homeland Security. He is an adjunct professor of psychology, criminal profiling, criminal behavior, sociology, group dynamics. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree, a master's degree in forensic psychology, and is currently a PhD candidate in forensic psychology.
That's what you call a pedigree.
I know, right?
Great background.
Yeah. Not done. Over 24 years of law enforcement and teaching experience. Although he says he's retired, he spends his life giving lectures throughout the world, working on his PhD, and currently working on his first novel, as well as contracting his skills with law enforcement agencies.
Well, I'm super glad we have Stacey on because he has some really amazing experiences, and he knows so much. And I think right now, especially in the times that we're in, he's going to really add a lot of value to an important discussion. So we're excited to have him on the show today.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring him in studio. Hey, Stacey, how are you?
Hi, good morning.
Stacey, how are you?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you. How you guys doing?
Good. We're doing great. Thanks for being here.
Great. It's my pleasure.
Yes, Stacey, where are you? Are you in the world today?
I am in a small town called Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Oh, very nice.
Awesome.
Well, basketball goes on in Indiana.
Yes,
I like basketball.
yes.
That's the
Hoosier State.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And here we go, totally derailed to sports.
I know. I do that every time. I know.
Yeah.
Alabama last time.
Stacey, I have some questions that I've sort of put to writing because I didn't want to miss anything. After learning about you, reading your manuscript, doing more research, looking at your TED Talks, there's so much about you that I think is such a valuable way that we can bring all of your experience into basically making the workforce better, right? Yeah. So let me read off my first question. In your book, you get really into some pretty raw topics. And when reading the manuscript that your team sent over, I was struck not only by your openness and honesty, but also by your obvious advocacy for mental health awareness. With regard to mental health in the workplace, I would like to ask you how management can create and sustain a healthy working environment, considering how COVID and stress caused by the pandemic and changing work environment is affecting the workforce. That's a pretty loaded question. Sorry for the length of it.
Well, first, I'd like to start off with that mental health should be more emphasized. I believe next week is Mental Health Week, and a few months from now we'll have Mental Health Month. And I think it should be not only recognized more, but celebrated more. Mental health is, I hate when people, not hate, but I have disdain for the word illness. It's not an illness. For example, only 30%, not only, but 30% of the population that are on psychiatric medication really need psychiatric medication. However, we have 70% of that population that are on medication, and it really doesn't need to go that far. We need more therapy. These individuals, these 70% who are currently on medication, should seek not psychiatric attention, but therapeutic attention and seek counseling. And I think workforce needs to be more adapt to that and publicize that more. We go to work and we see pictures of donating to blood or Red Cross Week or donating to in law enforcement, Shop with Cops. You have all these type of organizations out there, but there's organizations that help mental health the community, and they should be more celebrated. You should see more posters and more advertisement, more emails in your junk mails that you get at work. There should be more into celebrating mental health and saying, hey, it's not wrong. It's not bad to have a problem. It's not, there's nothing wrong with having an issue. There is something wrong with not getting help and not supplying your employees with the proper and adequate care for that. For instance, if I'm going on too long, let me know.
No, we want to hear you talk.
My former place of work, they offered counseling. And in my situation, I chose to see, I had to go see this guy, a therapist, and he was great. All he did was listen. And there's a lot of therapists when I talk to people in the tech community and other communities, because law enforcement, tech community, and the medical field are the highest stress jobs. The medical field have the highest suicide rate. Doctors are, when they graduate, they're under a extreme pressure to stay in the internship, and if not, they're under a great deal of pressure, and they want to choose to harm themselves. But they only back to going to the employee assistant programs that a lot of companies have, they only allow you to see this counselor about 4 times, then you're done. And that's sad.
Well, one of the things that happened recently, and this is, I'm sorry, another sports reference, but I think it's one that's really applicable right now, and it's for Ray's favorite football team, the Dallas Cowboys. I was super thrilled, and I just thought it was amazing when Dak Prescott said, hey, my brother died in COVID-19. I got to tell you, I was depressed. Mm-hmm. And he talked about being having some mental illness challenges and how he needed some help to overcome that. I just thought that was extraordinary, and I cannot say enough about that. The quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, came forward and said that. And I think we need more people to talk about those things and really publicly celebrate those individuals.
Exactly. When I know the story you're talking about, and when I heard that, I was not in awe. I was sad to hear about his brother and the death of his brother, but I was glad that he came out and spoke about that, because it felt like it felt so relieved to hear someone in that position to come out and publicly state that. We've been ever since the 80s, the word mental health has been a taboo, a negative verbiage, a negative strike of conversation that you would have towards the water cooler. You hear the words a lot like cray cray or crazy, and for people who have experienced mental health issues, that brings them back into their shell that they were once coming out of. And it's like for COVID instance, Beth, you had mentioned COVID. There are tons of people out there that are back in the workforce who are scared to death, and scared to, for instance, first responders. I know there's people out there scared to death, but you wear that gun, you wear that badge, you carry that fire hat on, and you can't say anything because you're in a tough society, you're in a tough culture, and you can't say, hey, I'm afraid. To go home and to hug my kids and wife because I spent 8.5 hours dealing with the public, and I don't know if that individual may be or maybe not COVID positive. And think about that. You deal with that 8.5 hours a day. You come home and you think about it, deal with it for a week. Don't you think that brings some kind of stress? And that stress builds because in certain areas in workforce, you can't talk about that because it's not culturally correct to talk about your fears.
Well, and you think you'll be stigmatized, right? I mean, you get to a point where you think, I need to go see a counselor. The best opportunity for me, low cost, is to go through the employee assistance program. But then everybody at work's going to know, or then my boss is going to know. Then are they going to give me the projects that I have been up for? Am I going to get the new position that I've been vying for over the past 2 years? You get yourself in a sort of this, you're already in a position where you need to reach out. And then you're put in a position because, culturally, there is that stigma. And then you are now doubling down on your fear or your anxiety because you have to hide it.
Yes.
Well, one of the things I want to say is if you're in a progressive workplace environment that offers employee assistance, that call on the EAP line and those conversations with that mental health provider should be 100% confidential. If that's not happening, that's a problem. And if you find that's happened or of instances where that has happened in your workplace, I would immediately give us a call. We'll tell you how to handle that and help you out, or immediately call your corporate ethics department, because if that's happening, that is just absolutely unacceptable. So I want to make sure that when you're with a good company and they have an EAP, dial it up, call it up, use it, because it should be 100% confidential.
Yes,
that's great. And thank you for speaking.
And the other thing on EAPs, a lot of more progressive companies are now unlimiting those calls. Whereas before you could visit a therapist 4 times in a year. Now, because of COVID, a lot of organizations have taken that cap off. So that's the other thing that hopefully organizations are also doing too to help employees.
Yeah. And back to what Jason was saying, I love research. I love doing research on all topics. I used to just be research about psychology. For instance, if you see a cloud and it reminds you of an object, there's a psychological term for that, and I didn't know that. And I just certain things like that I would like to connect with psychology. However, Jason mentioned something, and one thing a lot of people don't know is, though you do not have to be a federal employee, you do not have to work for the government to be protected under the Whistleblower Act. Every state has a Whistleblower Act, and I just found that out. Indiana has a Whistleblower Act. So, if you feel your information or your privacy has been leaked out, you can voice your opinion, and you can go and be protected under the Whistleblower Act in your state.
Yeah, and you're also covered under HIPAA. HIPAA also protects you for mental health issues as well too. That should not be disclosed, just like any personal medical issues. So, Stacey, one of the things that's going on right now is there's a lot of workplace stress, from COVID to our African American and Black colleagues talking about systemic racism and the things that have been affecting them. So there's a lot of just general stress that we haven't seen as much as we've seen in 2020. So one of the things I'd like to ask you is, what tools can workplaces create to have an environment that's less stressful for employees? What are some of your recommendations for that?
Well, if your company doesn't have one, I suggest that you have in COVID, with COVID being, so avid here, one thing I used to suggest when I gave my tech Tech and Stress Talk is make sure your company has a discounted rate to a fitness facility. And if not, ask them to get one. Most fitness organizations will give you a fitness discount rate. For example, there's a company here. I'm not going to say the name of the fitness company, but they usually charge $40 per month. But if you're a member of an organization, they'll charge you $10 to $15 a month. And get involved in that. If that doesn't work, and because of COVID, go walking. Get a work wife or a work husband, strictly platonic. I have a work wife. Well, I had one, Robin. She was on my. We were homicide detectives together, and to this day, I still call her, and I still talk to her when I need advice because she's the smartest person I've ever met in my life, and she gives me advice. She may make me feel stupid sometimes, but she gives me advice. But get that. Do outings like you're doing right now. Schedule a Zoom meeting. You got to let that silly sock come out, that silly side come out. And these are you notice I'm not mentioning anything about therapy. I'm not mentioning anything about counseling or psychiatric medical treatment in regards to medication. These are all things that we as human beings can do to help alleviate the stress in our lives. Do karaoke and on video. Be silly, be creative, and what you'll notice is these individuals will open up and they will have the same fears and same likenesses and same interests as you do, because we are totally different people at work than we are off screen. My one of my colleagues in my gang unit once said, he known me for 24 years and never knew I had kids, because I never went to work. I wasn't that person that put the pictures or drawings up or talked about vacations or talked about athletic achievements of my kids or bragged about kids. This individual said, wow, I never knew you even had kids. And my kids were 21 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. Think about and all that. Think about that. You go to work every day and you hear other people talk and brag about their kids, and you don't say anything because you want to be this disciplined person. You want to be this, person known wearing these different Allen Edmonds' shoes to work every day and different bow ties, and that was the image you portrayed. And then it all suddenly comes apart and it breaks. And believe me, when you have stress and it builds up and it explodes, it really explodes. And these are methods that will, in my opinion, my professional and personal opinion, will alleviate some of these stresses.
Why are homicide detectives so well dressed?
Well, I gotta admit, I was the only one. Everybody else wore cargo pants and dressed like they were at a training seminar in Quantico. I did it because I felt that if I'm going to see the family member, if I'm going to see the doctor or going to an ER to interview a witness, I wanted to let them know that the way I dress is the way I'm going to conduct that case.
Absolutely.
Right.
I love it. I've never heard it put that way. I'm glad I asked you that question because I never heard that.
Yeah. I heard this guy I used to love the TV show The Wire, and this one guy, he said, "Who you think you are, Pat Riley?" He said, "It's a basketball game, right?" And tie, and he said, "Dress the part, be the part." So,
I like it.
I had an incredible employer many, many years ago, and he would always say, you dress the way you want to be seen. If you want to be an executive in the company, you dress as if you already are an executive in the company. You wear your tie, you wear your suit jacket, you come prepared the way you want to, bring yourself to be. So yeah, absolutely agree with that. So talking about stress, Stacey, you talked about taking a walk, working out, but what if I'm in the moment at work or at home with my 11-year-old twins, and I feel that chest tightening, that stress, that lump in my throat? What specific techniques have you employed, not only in your career, but also in your experience as a mental health professional, sort of help me de-escalate that situation within myself so that I can get the best results from the people around me? I know if I'm stressed and I, raise my voice to my kids, they are not going to get that room clean. They're going to sit and pout because mama yelled at them. So, I really, I'm really curious. What other than the counting to 10 and the breathing, is there anything else that that you can?
For me, and I know a lot of people, this may be, controversial, but for me, if I'm at a place where I've been there, I've been a place where I didn't feel like I was free. I've been at a place where you had to clock in, where you couldn't have cell phone around. And for all my life, I've been an individual who's had freedom, and I've never abused that freedom. And to be monitored like that, it really bothered me. So what I did was I prayed every hour on the hour, and that gave me something to look forward to. It did. I said the Lord's Prayer every hour on the hour, and it really gave me something to look forward to. But what I tell individuals, if you don't pray, hey, that's fine, but make sure you do something every hour on the hour, because what that does is it gives you something to look forward to. If you don't like where you're at, a lot of people don't like their job, especially now during COVID. And some people do like their jobs, but give yourself something to do every hour on the hour. Go to the bathroom, pray, just pray for like 3 minutes, go back and come back to work. But what it does is and what I did was I marked it down. And I did that. It showed me that I accomplished something, and it showed that I had control of my life.
Yeah, I really like that. I've been in situations where you just were so micromanaged, and you would get up to go get a drink of water, and you knew that the boss was looking at you and wondering what you were doing. So that method of giving yourself an incentive that works for you that's a really great, powerful idea. I really like that.
That reminds me of that old Saturday Night Live skit where he stands in the mirror and he says, "I am good enough, I am smart enough, and darn it, people like me."
I remember that.
Yes, George Smalley.
Don't make me laugh.
Yeah.
Don't make me laugh.
So you have some amazing skills that a lot of us will never have. So you're an experienced hostage negotiator, and so obviously you know how to communicate to people in some really amazing ways, and probably communicating to somebody in the worst day of their life ever as a hostage negotiator. So can you tell us some tools that we can use to talk to each other better when we're in stressful situations at the work? What are some of the things that you recommend, Stacey?
The main thing I recommend is, and people don't use it a lot, and that was how I met Beth. That was my TED Talk speech. I converted. Active listening is a form the FBI uses in hostage negotiations. And in order to be a hostage negotiator, I took a week-long training conducted by the FBI, so I can be a hostage negotiator in my home city department. But one thing I really realized was active listening was the key. All you do is listen. Like Ray, what he's doing right now, he's shaking his head. He's letting me know that he's listening, and and Jason, you too. And certain words like, yeah, okay. The worst thing to do is cut someone off. The worst thing to do is, and my mom still does it to this day. But when I don't do it to her, she said, "Oh, Mr. Active Listener, you're supposed to listen." But when she says it, I'm like, "Mom, it's project your influence, your ideals, your thoughts on someone." And even if you're a supervisor, there's better ways to say things to individuals. For instance, you could say, "Well, is there another method you think would be better?" Or, "How do you see this outcome happening? What would you like to see this? What would you like this outcome to be? How would you see this?" There's methods, totally different methods. There's empathetic listening some people use. There's proactive listening. But the main key is to listen, because guess what? Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be heard. And the two things that human beings want more than anything in this world, even more than love, they want to be heard, and they want to be a part of something.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that we talk about in our consulting practice is that active listening and that empathetic listening. That's one of the things that we talk about as a hallmark of our consulting practice. And I know that when we talk about that, and some people say, "Oh my gosh, listening, that's such an overused attribute, and what are you talking about listening? Everybody listens." But what we've really found in our discussions is that that's really at the cornerstone of everything that we're talking about, whether it's been you this morning talking about active listening, whether that was Steve Cadigan, who the former CHRO of LinkedIn, talked about how he listened at LinkedIn to create a really great workforce, whether that was Amy Capolanti-Wolf, who talked about how to listen to create a more inclusive employee culture, whether that's Thrive Live, talking about how we listen to understand our customers and their needs. While we say listening is this overused terminology, it really is at the cornerstone of everything that we're doing. And really, as we look at all of the things that are happening social justice wise, it's my opinion that listening is at the crux of it, is to understand how you feel, and to really listen and to be really empathetic and to put, ourselves in, the person's shoes that are standing across from us. So while we think listening is overused, I think really empathetic and active listening, like you talked about, really is a skill that many of us have not mastered yet. It is still incredibly important.
It is because
it is.
I have to say this, not to get off the subject, but the individuals, the powers that be that want to change the military institutions' names. My father is a Green Beret. There's 17 of us in law enforcement in my family. My mom calls us the black version of the TV show Blue Bloods. But my dad was a proud serviceman, was a former Green Beret, retired police officer. I never heard him once say that they need to change the name of Fort Bragg or any of these institutions. And that goes to show that whoever the next councilman or the next senator that says that or brings it up, you want to think to yourself, is this individual really listening to the people? Because no, I could care less if they change the name of a military institution. The military protects us. Military is not out there out there policing our cities. They're not sworn to protect and serve us. They're sworn to protect and serve this country. So therefore we should honor them and let them keep the names, because I don't know anyone that wants those names changed.
Well, we thank you and your family for your military service, and thank you for all of your family being in the police force. We know how many great law enforcement folks that there really are out there. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, that's great.
Ray, do you have anything? I feel like you've been so quiet this whole time.
There's great discussions going on. No, I've just got a quick question for you, Stacey. Just you're really good at clearly understanding people and profiling people. And the question really is around, what kind of techniques do you look at when you're looking to bring somebody into your organization? What are the things that you do for a new team member, and and how do you know if you've made a good decision in bring somebody in?
I listen to them, and the background. Education really doesn't. Their past education doesn't mean that much to me. It's what they're doing now, how they're seeing the world now, their ability to want to change, not just social justice, but the social culture in our society. I see individuals. I've been all over the world, and I've received more love in Europe than I have in the United States, and that's just amazing. And one thing they told me, I've never been to Europe before. Well, I've been as a federal agent, but just as a regular person, they said people may look at you and stare at you, and it's not because you're black or they're racist or anything. It's because they don't see that many people like you in their country, and it was weird at first, people staring at me, because I'm like, what you looking at, but then again, as they come and they talk to me and they just ask questions, my thing is what I'm looking for is someone who doesn't see color, and there's people out there that's like that. Beth, for instance, Beth just came and struck up a conversation with me, and she was talking. And as I got to talk to her more and listen, I said to myself, this is a woman who can fit anywhere. This is a woman who can go in South Fifth Ward, Houston, Texas, and sit down and have a plate of soul food and strike up a conversation and be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put up a plate
This,
right now.
yes, this is a person who can go anywhere, who can sit at a board of directors of Fortune 500 a company and dazzle them because she, the person she is. I told her I wasn't profiling her, but what strikes me the most is how she calls her kids. She doesn't necessarily call them by name. She gives them different names and names of affection and lovingness. Like when your daughter came in earlier, before you explained that, you said something to her, you gave her a name, and I just thought that was so great compassion and just how they act towards people, not just family members but other individuals. And that's how I really select people to be in my circle. And I said in my book, I don't blame anyone for my, what happened to me or my downfall, because I chose those individuals to be in my life. And therefore, I blame myself for that. I don't blame them. But now the Stacey Jenkins, I buried him when I retired April the 9th. 2019. And CRUX Conception, I'm very selective about who I choose in my circle, because if anything negative were to happen, it would be my fault because I wasn't careful in selecting them. So I think the best way to answer your question is you have to watch that person. Just watch them carefully. Don't strike a conversation with them. Let them speak. Because when you don't strike a conversation with someone and you just let them speak, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say their own words. And we have people right now in this country that if you don't ask them questions and they just say what they want to say, you'll see the true them, the real them.
Right.
I've heard many, many years ago in starting my professional career, I heard someone say that when he was hiring, what he would do with his, when he had just a few candidates to choose from at the end, he would take them to lunch and he would see the way that they would interact with the servers at the restaurant.
Yes.
That was his indication. It was how they spoke with someone, how they ordered their food, if their food was incorrect, how they, had that interaction, and how they would if they tip, kind of as sort of thing. And I think that really says a lot. I think the way that we treat anyone around us says everything about our spirit and our heart. And I think it's so important to really consider the way. And you also don't want someone on your team, or I wouldn't, who's interacting with someone who is in a different role than they are, either, a higher role or a, less, role, and talking with them and acting as if they're maybe inadequate or not as smart or not as part of the team. We have to treat everybody, everybody, puts their pants on the same. Everybody's got, I always tell my kids, everybody's got something,
Well, I'll give you a tip. What happens all the time is when the interview is over, if most hiring managers do that, or most corporate recruiters do that, you walk out and you talk to the lobby ambassador who welcomed the person into the building, and you go and you talk to the corporate administrative assistant who may have walked the individual around from office to office or cube to cube. And you ask them, how did that person interact with you? Were they pleasant? Were they nice? And if the lobby ambassador and the the corporate administrator go thumbs down, which is totally a rude jerk, really how that person comes across. So that happens all the time. Now, Stacey, the other thing is you have a book. You've not mentioned the name of the book, and you've not mentioned how we buy the book, which is really critical. So please tell us the name of the book and how we buy the book.
Okay. Well, and I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. What I tell people, and I used to tell my students, when my hands are up like this, that's my virtual wall. I'm scared. I'm nervous. So I'm not cool and relaxed, but so, and when when you said that, I put my hands up because the book is called Outside My Mind, corruption behind the blue wall. And I chose those words very carefully. Like I said, I'd like to do great research. And when you say the blue wall is the symbol of law enforcement that you see on license plates, is that blue strip in the black, and in the middle it's the blue. And I looked up words and what happened in my situation, because I love law enforcement. I told someone the other day, I have a lot of reasons to be disgruntled with law enforcement. I have a lot of reasons to post. Beth knows me on Facebook. I have a lot of reasons to post certain things that are legitimate about negative reactions that police officers are doing, but I won't do that, because that could have been me. Those cops in California, if I hadn't retired, that could have been me in Los Angeles. It could be any one of my 17 family members. It could be my twin brother that could, so I don't do that. But I looked up the word corruption and what happened to me in my instance, and what's still happening, or not still happening, but what had happened was corruption. And so I labeled that word, but my editor sent some more chapters for me to proofread, and it's hard for me to proofread, because if you read it, it's so vivid and it takes me back. And it's like I'm scared to read it. So the book should have been out last year. I'm just real scared to read each chapter, because it takes me back to a lot of painful memories. But it's going to be out hopefully in December, because by December I should have my PhD, and I wanted to say Dr. PhD, author, Dr. Crux Consulting.
I get that.
To answer your question, sorry to drag it out, but you answered that, the first thing I said is, because in my calendar it says proofread chapter 8 and 9, and I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. No, not today. I don't want to do that. Yeah.
Well, we wanted you to make some money, so that's that was our only reason for the question.
Okay, yeah. So but the money I'm going to make for that is going to go to mental health and to 2 homicide cases that I didn't solve, that I'm gonna give it to the family, and they can post it for Crime Stoppers rewards or whatever. But the money that I make for this book, because I've got a little thing here, it's a little journal, and I have 24 years worth of investigations written on that, and I saved all my investigations. I always copy and paste, so I got 24 years of police stories to tell, mental health stories to tell. So this book is just to get out there, get my story told, to help others, to influence others. But the money will go to mental health, crisis intervention, non-law enforcement crisis intervention programs, and to the 2 family members of the victims of the cases that I didn't solve before I retired.
Well, that's fabulous.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much for that. That's just amazing that you're going to do that. That's really walking your talk, and we really appreciate somebody who does that in today's environment. So that's amazing, Stacey. Thank you.
Stacey, you mentioned that you do corporate talks, you do TED Talks. How do people find you, and how do they book you for their corporate events?
The corporate
exactly what you do with that as well.
Well, they can find me on anything Crux Conception right there, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Although Twitter, I don't even know the hang. I don't even get the hang of Twitter. Only reason I have a Twitter account is because there's an individual that posts some weird things on Twitter, and a lot of people want me to profile it. So I do profile the certain tweets that this individual makes, and I give a cycle. No, not you. No, but I do give a psychological profile of individuals in politics.
The mind wanders.
So I do profile those, but LinkedIn, Facebook, my email is even crux.conception@gmail.com. You can reach me there, and I'll give you a link to my Speaker Bureau website. And you can see I have over 16 different lectures, which were originally written and researched by me. My tech, I'm so sorry. I used to call it Tech Lives Matter, Hands Up, Don't Reboot, but someone told me I'd probably get more speaking gigs if I changed the title. So it's just called The Stress in Tech. What I did was I sent out over 1,300 questionnaires to people that I've met in the tech community. And I said, hey, send them back to me anonymously, or you can do it and I'll jot this down as anonymous. And that's when I realized, I started doing more research, that the tech community is the second highest, most stressful profession in the United States.
When you talk about tech community,
Mhm.
you specifically mean software developer, software engineer?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's so weird. They showed me so much love. I spoke before COVID, I spoke 34 times in Europe. And originally, when I retired and I wanted to go speak about mental health and team building skills using hostage negotiation methods, I aimed at law enforcement and people like NAMI and Crisis Intervention International, and even school resource officer conventions, and they just turned me down. So there was a tech conference in Budapest, Prezi. It was called Stretch, and they put me on the map. They literally put me on the map. When I stepped on that stage, there were like 2,000 people there, and I was just wow. And next thing you know, more tech individuals came to me, more tech conferences came to me, DevOps. And so I just started gearing my lectures towards the tech community and embracing them. And one thing I say to them about the active listening part, I say, you're probably wondering what a cop is doing at a tech conference. And I say, well, one thing we have in common is our key ingredient to who we are. We like problem solving. And everybody shakes their head and goes, yeah, yeah. And I said, see, what you're doing right there is active listening. It shows that we have a bond. It shows that you're listening to me. And it starts from there.
So Ray and I have been in the technology world a long time, having been at, doing HR and high tech companies for many years.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the specific things you're seeing that happen in tech that are driving stress? Is there anything that you can share with us?
Yeah, one, like on my questionnaires, it's the change of the job. Matter of fact, I was at a DevOps in Dallas last couple years ago, or a year before last. I went there and I talked about the stress in tech. And one guy told me, he said he was a programmer, but he worked for a major firm. I'm not going to say their name, but he worked for a major firm, and he happened to be there. And he said, and he'd been a programmer for over 10 years, and they told him he had to change his job and to change his position. And he had one option: he can either quit, or he can try to work into this job. But if he wasn't successful at this job, he'd be terminated. And I'm like, wow. And he said, this happens a lot in the tech build. He said, you change your position a lot in tech. And for me, that would be like being a homicide detective one day and then being told that you have to be a crime scene tech. And if you couldn't manage it within 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever, you'd be terminated. And that's stressful.
Well, that's a really good point, because that is true. In tech companies, there is a huge amount of churn related to reorgs and new managers, mm-hmm. and being asked to do different things. I'm on a Facebook page where a very large company, and the individual who is a technical person is retiring after 20 years. Mm-hmm. And he said one of the reasons why is because he's had 20 managers in 20 years. So every year he's had a new manager. And that's very common in technology. And I think a lot of people that don't work in tech, who've maybe been in the same position in an oil and gas company or, some other company for 15, 20, 25 years, they don't really realize that in technology, you move and change jobs so quickly that it can really lead to a lot of stress and in terms of the movement and being able to deal with that pretty quickly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. One guy, I was at another location, and he gave me a word. And what I do is I always say, I think I told Beth this, every time I get off stage, I don't ask how I did. I say, what do I need to work on? Because if you said how you did, they can be sympathetic or empathetic, and they may say kind things to you, like, oh, you were fine, you just need to work on that. But if you come out and say in full force, Mike Tyson style, what do I need to work on? That's forcing them to be honest with you and to tell you everything, because it's saying, okay, this person wants an honest opinion, I'm gonna give him my honest opinion. But that same individual said to me, I use it a lot. He said, I miss the clowns, but I don't miss the circus. And so that's what I say now about law enforcement, so I miss the clowns, but I don't miss the circus.
We're talking about Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas, or are we talking Mike Tyson?
Mike Tyson before Buster Douglas. What was his trainer's name who was like a father to him? That Mike Tyson.
Gustamata.
Yeah, that Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
The humble, hungry Mike Tyson. Yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so.
Well, Stacey, it's been a really good talk.
It's been
We hope that people are able to reach out to you and use your skills in their corporations. I think you do an amazing job. I think you are giving and caring, and like Jason said, you walk the walk. Mm-hmm. So we're just really grateful that you took the time to talk to us and get kind of raw about some of these things. And we're greatly appreciative.
Thank you.
Guys, anyone, any parting words?
No, thanks for everything. Great interview, great discussion, and we're going to be talking to you more. And we'll just do another shout out one more time. How do we find you out there?
CRUX Conception, like there. If you see the name on the screen, all you have to do is put a dot after CRUX, put it together, and it's either at Gmail, Facebook, LinkedIn. But if you Google CRUX Conception, you'll see all my all my connections. So
that's fantastic.
If you want to get a hold of Stacey, just send us an email at thrivehrconsulting.com, and we'll also put you in contact with Stacey.
Thank you. And if I could say, I just want to let everybody know that I'm committed to mental health by even the name. The name is it's a pseudonym for crisis intervention. So.
Oh, that's great.
I
Yeah.
wondered where it came from.
Yeah, I Googled it through a Wu-Tang Clan name generator. Really. I typed in crisis intervention and hit generate, and it came up with CRUX Conception. So
interesting.
Very good. Very good. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, Stacey. All right.
I appreciate it.
So much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you later, Stacey.